The airport terminal buzzed with the usual mix of announcements, rolling suitcases, and impatient travelers. Among the crowd, Naomi Richards moved with quiet confidence. She wasn't just another passenger. She was the founder and CEO of one of the world's largest travel groups, a company valued at nearly $1 billion. Yet no one at the gate that morning knew who she was. To them, she was simply a black woman with a distinct West African accent, waiting to board her flight. As Naomi approached the gate agent to confirm her upgraded seat, the employee barely looked up. With a dismissive wave, he scanned her boarding pass and frowned. "This doesn't look right. First class is full." Naomi, calm and polite, explained that she had confirmed her upgrade the night before. Her words were met not with professionalism, but with a smirk. "Aha," the agent replied, dragging out his response. "Maybe you misunderstood. Happens sometimes with accents like yours." The words cut sharper than a shout. Passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably, some pretending not to hear. Naomi's eyes stayed steady, though a flicker of pain passed behind them. She repeated firmly, "My reservation is correct. Please check again." The agent sighed dramatically, as though her request was an inconvenience. After a few taps on his keyboard, he handed back her boarding pass with a forced smile. "Middle seat. Economy. That's what's available. Take it or leave it." A murmur rippled through the line. Everyone could see the unfairness, yet no one spoke. Naomi accepted the pass without argument, but her silence was not surrender. It was calculation. She had endured slights like this before, enough to know that sometimes dignity meant refusing to give them the reaction they sought. As she walked away, the agent shook his head and muttered to a coworker loud enough for others to hear, "First class isn't for everyone. Some folks should know their place." Laughter followed. Naomi didn't turn around. She simply adjusted the strap of her bag and continued down the jet bridge, her posture unbroken. Inside, however, she felt the familiar ache of being reduced to a stereotype in spaces her success had helped build. What the agent didn't know, what no one at that gate realized, was that Naomi Richards wasn't just a traveler. She was the woman whose company had brokered multimillion-dollar deals with international airlines, hotels, and airports. She employed tens of thousands across the globe, and with one decision, she could shift billions in travel contracts. This small act of arrogance, this casual cruelty disguised as procedure, was about to set off a chain of consequences far beyond the gate agent's imagination. Naomi took her economy seat with quiet composure. But even in silence, power was gathering. The cabin filled with the shuffle of passengers finding their seats. Naomi slid into her reassigned spot, the cramped middle seat that stood in stark contrast to the first-class ticket she had rightfully secured. Around her, people shifted uncomfortably, aware of the exchange at the gate but unwilling to acknowledge it. Silence, after all, was safer than confrontation. Across the aisle, a young employee named Lucas, a junior airline staffer deadheading on the flight, had witnessed everything. His gut twisted with unease. He had seen the mocking tone, the smug smirk, the cruel remark about Naomi's accent. Yet he said nothing. His training had drilled into him the unspoken rule: don't challenge senior staff, don't make waves. So he sat quietly, pretending to scroll through his phone while guilt gnawed at him. Moments later, the lead flight attendant, Grace, passed through the cabin. She had caught the tail end of the incident too, heard the laughter from her colleagues. For a moment, her instincts as a professional and as a fellow human being urged her to step in to at least check on the passenger. But then she hesitated. Confronting a gate agent meant paperwork, possible reprimands, maybe even a career setback. Like Lucas, she chose the comfort of silence over the risk of accountability. Naomi felt their eyes on her. She knew when people were wrestling with conscience but choosing complicity. It wasn't new. She had walked into countless boardrooms where whispers followed her accent, where her skin tone was a silent barrier she had to dismantle with results, not words. Yet here, in this crowded airplane, the sting of public humiliation pressed harder. Still, she did not raise her voice. She did not demand apologies or escalate to the captain. Instead, She placed her carry-on beneath the seat, folded her hands neatly in her lap, and sat tall. Every inch of her composure radiated a quiet power that unsettled those who had wronged her more than anger ever could. Grace returned with the beverage cart later, offering drinks with rehearsed politeness. When she reached Naomi's row, their eyes met briefly. Naomi accepted a glass of water with a small, dignified nod. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. The unspoken message was clear. I see you. I know you chose silence. Lucas shifted again in his seat, shame burning in his chest. He wondered who she was, this woman who endured the insult with such grace, who carried herself like someone who had nothing to prove and everything to teach. He didn't know yet that her name commanded influence in the very industry that signed his paycheck. As the plane lifted into the sky, Naomi closed her eyes. She wasn't retreating into defeat. She was planning. Every slight, every humiliation, every careless insult had always been fuel for her resolve. This time would be no different. The others on that plane didn't know it yet, but Naomi Richards wasn't a powerless passenger. She was a storm waiting for the right moment to break. By the time the plane touched down, the gate agent's smirk had already faded into the background of routine. To him, it had been another small victory, a moment of petty power at a customer's expense. What he didn't realize was that the woman he mocked was already setting in motion a chain of events that would shake his employer to its core. As Naomi disembarked, she moved with the same quiet composure she had carried all day. No loud complaint, no scene. But within hours of reaching her destination, her office was in motion. Naomi Richards wasn't just a traveler. She was the chairwoman of Horizon Global Travel, a conglomerate controlling contracts worth nearly $1 billion annually. Airlines, hotels, and entire resort chains relied on her company's partnerships to survive. That night, as the agent likely slept soundly, assuming he had silenced yet another difficult passenger, Naomi was on a conference call with her executive team. Calmly, she detailed the incident. Not with anger, but with precision. They didn't just downgrade me, she said. They downgraded their own values. This was not an error, it was contempt disguised as procedure. And contempt has consequences. Her team understood immediately. Within 24 hours, Horizon Global began a quiet but devastating process. Rerouting corporate accounts, pulling bulk flight contracts, and diverting nearly 1 million customers' loyalty points to competing airlines. It wasn't a press release, not yet. It was silent surgical punishment. Meanwhile, inside the airline's offices, managers started noticing unusual alerts. Sales teams scrambled as key accounts flagged cancellations. Regional directors questioned why their most profitable client was suddenly shifting. Panic rippled quietly up the chain. Back in the small airport where it all began, whispers reached Lucas, the young employee who had stayed silent. He overheard senior staff in the break room muttering about the Richards account collapse and how it threatened quarterly earnings. His stomach sank. Could it be the same Naomi Richards, the woman he saw humiliated at the gate? Grace, too, began to hear fragments of the fallout during pre-flight briefings. The airline was losing ground fast. Entire routes under threat because of a VIP client incident. She felt the sting of her own inaction. She had chosen silence when she could have chosen courage, and now the cost was far greater than she ever imagined. Naomi, however, was not motivated by vengeance alone. To her, this wasn't just about a rude agent or a silent flight crew. It was about accountability. Too many times, corporations had treated dignity as optional, as though respect were a perk and not a right. She intended to remind them otherwise. The reckoning had begun, not with shouting, not with threats, but with the quiet, undeniable pull of power exercised by someone who knew her worth. And the airline was only just beginning to realize the storm it had invited. Within a week, the airline's executives were in crisis mode. Emails flew between departments, legal teams huddled in late-night meetings, and shareholders demanded answers. Horizon Global Travel, Naomi's company, had officially severed ties. Contracts worth nearly $1 billion in annual revenue were gone overnight. Competitors scooped up the redirected business eagerly, watching as the once dominant carrier stumbled. News outlets caught wind of the sudden collapse. Headlines speculated about the mysterious loss, while travel industry insiders whispered the truth. It all traced back to one woman, Naomi Richards, the same woman who had been dismissed at a gate with a sneer about her accent. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew the story. An employee had tried to belittle her, reduce her to just another passenger, and in doing so, had triggered the downfall of an entire corporate partnership. Inside the airline, panic turned to blame. Middle managers grilled the staff at Naomi's departure gate, desperate to piece together what had gone wrong. The agent who had mocked her grew pale when he realized who she had been. His smug confidence evaporated, replaced by fear of the consequences his arrogance had unleashed. Lucas, the junior staffer, watched the fallout unfold with a heavy heart. He replayed the moment in his mind, her quiet dignity, his own silence. If he had spoken up, perhaps he couldn't have changed the entire situation, but at least he could have lived with himself knowing he tried. Grace, too, carried the weight of regret. She realized that silence, while easier in the moment, had made her complicit in the very injustice that now threatened her company. Naomi, meanwhile, was not gloating. She didn't seek press coverage or public spectacle. Instead, she continued her work with the same grace she had shown on that humiliating day at the airport. To her, the victory wasn't in watching the airline stumble. It was in proving a point far larger than one incident. In a private meeting with her executives, she summarized it best. Respect is not negotiable. If a company cannot see the value in treating people with dignity, then they do not deserve our partnership. Business is not just numbers, it is people. And people remember how you make them feel. Those words spread quietly among her team, becoming an unspoken mantra. Horizon Global didn't just recover, it thrived, strengthened by Naomi's unwavering principles. Meanwhile, the airline that had dismissed her suffered lasting reputational scars. A cautionary tale for the industry about the cost of arrogance. For Naomi, the lesson was not new but necessary. Dignity does not need to shout to be powerful. Sometimes the strongest answer to disrespect is not anger but action, the kind that shifts entire empires without raising a voice. And for everyone who heard her story, one truth became impossible to ignore. Never underestimate the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth.